Hello and welcome back to coverage here at GP Atlanta. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paulo Vitor Dominorosa. We've got Yuta Takahashi and Yoshihiko Ikawa facing down, both players at 8-1. Fairies versus Tron. Little flyers or big boom booms. We'll see what ends up coming out on top. What did you notice about Yuta Takahashi's deck list here for the Fairies?
Well, it's not very dedicated fairy. I would say it's more like a blue-black deck in the sense that you can have a Jeskai deck, but you have Bitter Blossom thrown in for a good measure. It has 3 Jace the Mind Sculptor, it has 3 Liliana of the Veil, It has 2 copies of Hero's Downfall, only 2 Spellstutter Sprite, he has no Mistbind Click, he has no Vendilion Click.
Oh no Vendilion Click? Oh, he has one in the board.
One in the
board. He couldn't leave home without one of them in the sideboard. Oh, that's hilarious. Yuta Takahashi, well known for being an absolute lover of Vendilion Click. It's his favorite card.
Well, he's not showing it.
No.
I'm very disappointed.
I am a little too. I'm not going to lie to you here, Paulo. That's a little sad that he didn't main deck it.
Yeah, so I think he uses, this is a deck that uses Bitter Blossom in the same way that the other control decks use Search for Azcanta. Like you play it early, then you trade 1 for 1 for the rest of the game, and that one card will win you the game, except instead of drawing extra cards, it adds pressure. And you pressure on both players, I guess, but more so on your opponent.
Now, what about this sequence here? We see end step Yoshihiko Ikawa go for his Expedition map to get his 3rd Tron piece. He already has a mine in the power plant, or excuse me, he went to go get the power plant after having the tower in the mine. But Yuta, while still in the end step, said, I'm going to use this Field of Ruin here to take out that tower and not let you even have a sniff of actual Tron going here.
Yeah, you can't wait for your opponent to get the Tron here. So Yuta was going to be forced to use that on Ishikawa's upkeep. Sorry, Yoshihiko's upkeep, Ikawa. Because you can't afford for your opponent to just have Tron in hand. But it's better to wait because then they have to crack the map. And, assuming they do have Tron in hand, if you just do it immediately, they can just crack the map for whichever piece you destroyed. Whereas if you wait on their upkeep, at least they have to spend the mana then. But yeah, you can't really afford to let them have Tron.
Well, Ikawa's going to say, well, I did get a forest off of that Field of Ruin activation, and I'm going to put it to good use. I'm going to play Sylvan Scrying to go get another tower. So next turn he's threatening to have Tron anyway. And is that another Field of Ruin here for Yuta? Yeah, it is. So once again, we're going to see upkeep.
Yeah, and he kind of has to be because he doesn't have very many ways of actually disrupting his opponent other than the Field of Ruins. Like, he has 3 copies of Cryptic Command, and that's it. Like, Spellstutter Sprite is going to be very hard-pressed to counter anything once the Tron gets out there. It can counter, Sylvan Scrying, Ancient Stories, but it cannot counter the big cards, even with Bitter Blossom. And there's 1 copy of Spell Pierce as well.
Which might be able to nab something for like a 1-turn window.
Yeah, so this is a lot less of the, play on your turn game that we've come to expect from Fairies. This whole fork of decisions where your opponent has no idea what you have 4 mana and 6 cards in hand, and it's impossible for them to play around everything. It's almost really a tap-out deck with Hero's Downfall in it. Very unusual. And yeah, he only has 2 Mutavaults, so very interesting build here.
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
It's my kind of deck.
It's nice. It's like, it is very similar to the other control decks in the format, I guess, except it doesn't have any sweepers. That is the biggest difference. Blue-white, it really banks on having like 4 copies of Terminus, which is really good against some decks. And then even Jeskai has Supreme Verdict if things get out of control, and it has, Lightning Bolts, and this doesn't have any sweepers at all. No electrolyzes of any sort to kill 2 things. And it's very anti-creature-centric. Like, you see, there are 4 copies of Snapcaster Mage, but the only things you want as Snapcaster against not a creature deck are Inquisition of Kozilek, Serum Visions, and the 3 Cryptics. So he doesn't even have something like Logic Knot that the other control decks have to Snapcaster in the semi-mirror matches.
Now you see Takahashi getting more aggressive here. He's going to attack in with his Creeping Tar Pit and the 2 fairies that weren't summoning sick. But he is now facing down an Oblivion Stone, which looks pretty annoying for his ward state here.
Yeah, it is going to be an issue here, and because the only thing he has going for him is this small amount of pressure. And now he doesn't even have that anymore. And I believe his opponent even has the other Tron piece in hand.
He does. He went and searched it up. In fact, I think he has 2 power plants in his hand now.
Yeah, so
So it looks like Yuta has been able to buy himself some amount of time and get in a little bit of an attack here, but it feels like that's about to fall apart on him. Oblivion Stone wipes out his board.
I think the issue is that you're correct. He's managed to buy himself some time, but he doesn't want to buy time.
Right.
His opponent is the one that wants to buy time.
Right.
He has to win the game somehow,
Yeah.
and his deck is just not equipped to win the game. Like he had as much pressure as he's going to have. Right. He had Bitter Blossom turn 2, and then he had Cripping Tarpon, but he doesn't have Mistbind Click. He doesn't have Vendilion Click, so he doesn't actually have a way of putting pressure on your opponent.
Here's Walking Ballista for 4. Boom. And that can certainly keep a Bitter Blossom or a Creeping Tar Pit at bay. Is Yuta perhaps considering a card like Fatal Push or something along those lines here?
Yeah, he has to. If he has Fatal Push, he has to cast it. Like, normally you don't really want to do that, especially when you trade all your fairies for it, but... Like, that Walking Ballista by itself is already going to win the game. If it isn't removed, it will win the game by itself.
That's right. There's that Fatal Push. And it looks like Ikawa wants to wipe the board and do one to Yuta. Yuta gets 1 fairy back.
Yeah, and now Yuta is really on Cryptic Command or Bust duty, I think. And he probably doesn't have it, given that he's been attacking with his Torpid.
Right.
So he's in that spot. We've all played against Tron and been on that spot, right? There are 2 stages of playing against Tron. The first one is, I hope my opponent doesn't have the 3rd Tron piece.
Yes.
Right? You're like, that's what you're praying for.
Yeah.
And then obviously they play it because their deck is all Tron pieces and cards that find Tron pieces.
Right.
And you're like, okay, now I hope they only have Tron pieces. Right? I hope they have 100 mana and absolutely nothing to do with it.
And not this.
Yeah. And
all right. Who's hungry? Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger hits the battlefield, takes out Bitter Blossom and Ye Old Creeping Tar Pit. And things are not looking good for Yuta Takahashi. He's still facing down that Oblivion Stone if you were able to get any type of board state going. And that's going to be game number 1 to Toshihiko Ikawa. Yeah, the game plan for Yuta just didn't seem to come together for him, even though he got to cast the spells that he wants to cast in a lot of those turns, right? You know, the turn 2 Bitter Blossom, of course. But he just wasn't able to make that work. He's having a good time chatting it up with Ikawa, but that did not pan out well for him.
Yeah, I think his game plan actually did kind of come together.
Me
and
too.
It just wasn't good enough.
It just wasn't good.
I mean, he didn't, ideally he plays Bitter Blossom and then follows it up with Spellstutter's Pride and Counterspell and Cryptic Command and stuff like that. And he did have 2 Field of Ruins, which is one of his best cards in the matchup, but he just didn't have enough pressure, and his opponent drew a lot of Tron pieces, which again, it's all the deck is, right? He searched for a lot of them.
Yep.
And let's see if there's anything in the board here. For Yuta Takahashi, there is Vendilion Click, which is definitely going to come in. There are 2 Surgical Extractions, which is a card that it's not here for Tron, but I believe it will also come in, because if you Field of Ruin a Tron piece and then you cast Surgical Extraction, then you get rid of that. There's 1 copy of Spell Pierce, which, while not the best, you're still going to have in your deck because it counters the Sylvan Scry and the Ancient Stirrings. Mm-hmm. 2 copies of Negate, which are better because they also counter Karn and Oblivion Stone, regardless of how much mana your opponent has. And I think that's about it. He's not playing the new card, something Ego.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
it called?
Is it Altered Ego? Is that what it's called?
Unemored Ego.
Yeah, Unmoored Ego, I think
Unmoored
it's called, yeah.
Okay.
Altered Ego is a different card.
Yeah, that is the new card that was very hyped when it was released. That is the 3 mana card that you can... It's basically a Cranial Extraction variant where you can name anything, including non-basic lands. Or rather, yeah, including lands, but you only get 4 copies. But it is the one variant of this card that we've seen that can actually name a Tron piece.
Right.
So if you play that, then you get rid of Tron forever, the same as playing if you don't plays a Surgical Extraction. And it's a card that I'm sure if he expected more Tron, he would have in his sideboard. Right now, the metagame is not really primed for it. Like, there aren't that many combo decks. But it's possible that in a future metagame with, where you have decks like Tron living in ad nauseam, a lot of different decks that get hit by this card, it's going to be a big player in Modern.
Yuta wish he has a copy or 2 of that right now.
Yeah, and Yoshihiko Ikawa has, for himself, one Thought Knots here that's probably coming in. 3 Nature's Claims, which I do not believe are coming in. That was a mistake that I think people made a lot of the time when Bitter Blossom wasn't standard. They brought in answers that were only good against Bitter Blossom. And yeah, Bitter Blossom was your best card. It was really important. But it only set you up for failure a lot of the time because you would have the enchantment removal spell and they wouldn't have the Bitter Blossom and then it would do absolutely nothing. And then you would lose because of that. So it's a cost. And I don't think he's going to pay the cost here. He also has 2 copies of Carnage Tyrant.
Oh, really? Carney
Yeah.
T?
Yeah, standard powerhouse Carnage Tyrant making an appearance. We could see that here, right? His opponent is playing a deck with counter spells
Sure.
and removal spells, and not much racing power. Though I don't know how much he knows about his opponent's racing power.
Curious about that, too.
He could just assume his opponent didn't draw the Vendilion clicks, the
Right.
Mistbind clicks, or the Spellstutter sprites. He doesn't know necessarily that there are very few copies of those, if any.
Yeah, I mean, Yuta's reputation certainly precedes him when it comes to playing this Fairies deck, though. I get, if we didn't know him or anything about the past or whatever, you wouldn't even call this a Fairies deck, right? I mean, you wouldn't look at this thing and go, well, there's 4 Bitter Blossom and 2 Spellstutter Sprite. It must, it's Fairies. You would look at, it's a blue-black control deck, right? It's got 4 Snapcaster Mage, 3 Cryptic Command, 4 Fatal Push, 2 Heroes Downfall, 4 Inquisitions, and some Planeswalkers. Like, that's a blue-black control deck.
Yeah, I think Fairies, it has the monopoly on anything that has Bitter Blossom in it.
It's
is
just a Fairies deck.
Or Spellstutter Sprite, because we've had mono blue Fairies.
Now, hold on a minute. What about the black-white tokens deck that runs that?
Okay, that's not Fairies. So
Okay.
it has to have a card that cares about Fairies, right?
Yeah.
If you play one Spellstutter Sprite in your deck,
Your Fairies
it's
deck.
Fairies. Yeah. It's like Affinity, Well, it doesn't have any Affinity cards. It doesn't matter.
you're
It has
right.
their artifacts.
You're right.
right.
Yeah, it's shorthand at this point.
Yeah, but I agree with you. This is not a traditional Fairies deck. It is just a blue-black control deck that happens to have some Fairies thrown in it for good measure. And you wonder if Yuta Takahashi wasn't famous for Fairies, if we've never seen this guy before,
Yeah.
would he be playing those Fairies? Is it
No
something
way.
that is just intrinsic to him at some point? Like
Yes.
at this point, I have to play this.
Yes.
Does Guillaume Wafatapa ever want to play an aggro deck, but just doesn't? Does Craig, is Craig Wasco just,
He's secretly like a Demir.
yeah, I really want to
Aficionado.
play this blue-white deck, but I can't. It has to be aggro.
It's just too off-brand.
Yeah. And there are also 3 copies of Thoughtseize and 1 Swamp from Yoshihiko, which we could see. Again, he's playing against a control deck. And interestingly enough, no copies of Thoughtseize for Yuta Takahashi, which is not something I'd expect. He has 4 Inquisition, of course, in the main, which, makes sense. Inquisition is better in his deck because he also has Bitter Blossom
Yeah.
and Fetch Lands and Dual Lands. So you can't, and he has no way of getting rid of Bitter Blossom other than Cryptic Command. He has no Mistbind clicks. So it makes sense that he doesn't want to take much damage, but it seems to me like it would be a sideboard card, at least better than, Spell Pierce or Spell Snare. Spell Snare is good against some aggro matchups, so it's different. It's good against Burn too. So is Spell Pierce. But maybe Burn is the deck that, is prompting this Spell Pierce, Spell Snare as opposed to... Oh. And
Wow, look at the hand here from Yoshihiko. He's going to get his Sylvan Scrying Inquisitioned away, leaving him with a bunch of lands, Old Carney T, and the Thragtusk there too. So not a lot going on, at least in the early stages, though Ikawa is 2 out of 3 Tron pieces away currently.
Yeah,
So
and,
a tower or a Sylvan Scrying or a map could put him right back in this.
Yeah, and any future Inquisition that we see from Takahashi, including Snapcaster Mage, is very likely to miss. So at this point, he really wants to have Thoughtseize instead.
Yeah, that's interesting. And there we go. 8-drop right off the top for Ikawa, so still going to be a little while before he gets to cast those unless he finds Tron piece, specifically an Urza's Tower, and quickly passes the turn back to Yuta, who has land number 3, and we're going to see Liliana of the Veil here right away, Paulo.
Yeah, Liliana of the Veil is pretty strong in a lot of situations against Tron. When your opponent can just follow it up with, a Thrum piece and a Karn or whatever, then it's not really doing much for you. But this is a spot in which Takahashi knows this is not going to happen. Because he's seen his opponent's hand, and he knows that his opponent had 2 draw steps. They would have to be 3rd Tron piece and Karn, or third Tron piece and Wormcoil Engine for this to punish him. So I think he briefly considered, okay, I have Field of Ruins in hand, I can use that instead of Liliana, then my opponent is really not going to have Tron. But he's seen his opponent's hand, and he knows his opponent's cards are green. So Tron is not that great when wow, he discarded 7 Visions.
Yeah, he did.
Tron is not that great at casting Carnage Tyrant, right? It only accelerates for 1. You still need the green.
That's right. So it looks like Ikawa, though, found Ancient Stirrings and then found a map with the Ancient Stirrings. So TikTok, Yuta Takahashi, is going to be seeing Tron at some point. Ooh, he just drew Surgical Extraction, and he also has a Field of Ruin in hand. You mentioned this play sequence when we were talking about sideboarding. He could go for it here.
Yeah, and I believe he knows his opponent has another Urza's Power Plant in hand. So he could just do that now and get rid of that power plant as well.
That'd be pretty sweet. What happens to the game at that point if Ikawa just simply cannot make Tron anymore?
I don't like this because now he gave his opponent the chance to discard the Urza's Power Plant.
He did. Oh, and I think he discarded the Field of Ruin. Well, maybe he's...
Oh, no, it was a Mutavault.
Oh, sorry, Mutavault, yeah. But I think he does have a Field of Ruin in hand. But, yeah, there it is. But he doesn't actually need to use it now if he doesn't want to. He can just target the power plant with Surgical Extraction straight away.
Well, the thing is that the power plant's already in play.
Sure. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it won't matter anymore at all. Yeah, of course. My bad.
Yeah, so the idea, for me at least, would be that you Field of Ruin is the power plant.
Right.
Then you extraction the power plant.
And just get a free card out of it.
Yeah, and now Liliana forces your opponent to discard another card.
Yeah, I like that better.
Right. Unless his plan is to just pass and play Cryptic Command, which is also valid. Like, his opponent cannot do anything that is immune to Cryptic at this point. They can't cast Ulamog. They don't even have Tron, right?
I wonder what the difference is from his perspective.
I think that, honestly, to me, he just didn't realize it.
Okay.
And he thought his opponent was going to discard something else, which is why he's pausing now. Otherwise, he would have paused before.
Okay.
Right? If you're going to think about it, you think about it before you use Liliana, or otherwise it's too late. Right?
Totally. No, that's a good point.
But maybe his plan is just to crypt it, which I think is totally valid too.
Yeah, he also, he has kind of a weird line where he could use the bounce mode on Cryptic Command if it works out and put that power plant back in hand anyway.
Yeah, he has a lot of choices. I think he's in a good spot here.
Well, here's Ancient Stirrings number 2 now for Ikawa. Well, he finds a tower on easy mode here. No need to use the map.
Yeah, and now Takahashi can't respond.
Right. This is a little awkward for him. Now, the Cryptic Command will come in handy here, of course.
Yeah, he doesn't, he still needs to have that Karn that we talked about, and then he can still Cryptic it. So he's still in a fine spot, I think. And now he gets to Field of Ruins, his opponent, whichever land he wants, and his opponent is probably going to have to search for that at some point because he has to, and then he can Surgical that. So maybe that was his plan all along, right? He wanted to get rid of that Expedition map.
Okay.
Which I think makes sense.
Because he could map for a different utility land instead, even if he can't get Tron anymore?
Later on, yeah.
Later on?
He could.
Okay, sure.
But still, like, when you have that Liliana counting, I think you'd rather get the card from your opponent's hand immediately. He will get a card from his opponent anyway. So his plan worked out. And he could be a little bit punished if his opponent had, that Wormcoil or Karn or whatever. But doesn't look like he will be.
So Ikawa's going to replace that Urza's power plant with yet another one.
Yeah, Ikawa didn't search for Swamp. And we've seen Thoughtseize in his deck. So that's interesting to me as well. He has Carnage Tyrant that we know of, but one's already gone. There's only one left in his deck, and there are 3 Thoughtseizes in his deck. But Thoughtseize is also not nearly as important of a card at this point in the game, so it makes sense to me.
And there it is, Surgical Extraction, taking away 2 Urza's power plant.
Yeah, so
the other one in his hand.
Showing a lot of patience there.
Yeah.
Oh, he has the Swamp in his hand already.
Okay, there you go.
That makes sense. Showing a lot of patience there because in the end, the result was the same, right? He got rid of one of his opponent's cards. It was just the map as opposed to the card that is in his hand, which is arguably better. So he saw that he wasn't going to be punished by that, and he saw how the game was going to go, and then he waited and made the play, which I think is really good on his part.
Certainly worked out well for him.
Yeah, definitely did. Now he's probably going to discard whatever he draws for Liliana, is my guess, because he wants to keep that cryptic.
That's right. It was a creeping tar pit. Or maybe just a fetch land, but no, it was a tar pit. So tar pit hits the graveyard, and now we're going to see Thragtusk go on the stack with all 5 of the lands for Ikawa, but Yuta's going to say no, sir. Counter draw. And we've got Liliana at ultimate range here, though. As we talked about yesterday, Paulo, I wouldn't be shocked to see Liliana just keep on ticking upwards to get that last card out of hand from Ikawa.
Yeah, you probably will. And the way this is going to go is if Ikawa plays a 6th land, then Liliana is probably going to ultimate and get rid of 3 lands.
Yep.
But if he draws a card and keeps that card in hand, then it's probably just going to go up to get rid of the card.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be an expedition map.
Yeah, so we're probably going to see Liliana ultimate next turn.
Yeah. Also safe to go here now that Liliana is on 7 loyalty. She gets to stick around after the ultimate. So things looking very good for Yuta Takahashi here.
Yeah, I think he's in a pretty commanding position at this point. Because his opponent's deck is really not well suited to operating with 3 lands if they aren't Thrall lands.
Right.
And, his clock is pretty anemic, but it will get the job done.
Well, that works.
Yeah.
Yuta Takahashi says, I'm going to ultimate Liliana of the Veil. I'm going to start putting into 2 different piles. And Ikawa says, I'll save you the time, my friend, and just picks them all up and scoops them up. So that is game number 2 going to Yuta Takahashi. Impressively played there from him as he used surgical extraction to make sure that Ikawa could not get Tron at any point during the rest of that game, and then was able to just maneuver with the Bitter Blossom and that Cryptic Command to finish things off.
Yeah, it was really well done by him.
Yeah, of course, Liliana of the Veil playing a big part there as well.
Yeah, Liliana of the Veil is a very strong card against decks like, in a lot of spots against Tron and in almost any spot against a deck like Valakut, Scapeshift of sorts, which are decks that need, sometimes a critical mass of resources. Tron is a deck that a lot of the time you need 1 card to win. Like you need your 1 Ulamog or your 1 Karn on top of your 3 lands, and then Liliana is not going to do anything for you because it will never get rid of anything specific. But in those games where you were actively disrupting them and you were, casting discard spells and counter spells and Field of Ruin, then it's really good because it means they can never come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was never a game where, it was going to be won by a Nukin or a Ulamog.
Right.
Right, and then Liliana made sure it was won by anything.
Right, and interestingly, she kind of covered both bases, right? Like she made sure that Ikawa didn't have that critical mass, but then also by going ultimate meant that he didn't even have the option to top deck something big after he'd built up to 6 mana just the good old-fashioned way.
Yeah, because we could see, there wasn't much pressure, especially before the Bitter Blossom. So if it wasn't for Liliana, we could have seen, a 7th natural land and a Karn. That's not outside the realm of possibility.
Sure.
And we could have seen a Carnage Tyrant, which would just, well, I guess Liliana would just kill that.
Yeah.
But if Liliana wasn't there, then, yeah.
Look at Ikawa think. I wonder if he's thinking about that Carnage Tyrant situation right there.
Yeah,
like,
Liliana.
This deck does have other creatures in it, but it doesn't necessarily have multiple creatures on the battlefield very often. So I don't think it would be that uncommon for even a Liliana that was top deck to be able to kill a Carnage Tyrant, making it less of a silver bullet here.
Yeah, and the question is, do you want Carnage Tyrant or Wurmcoil Engine?
Right.
For example, because Wurmcoil is significantly easier to cast. Yeah, there are, Chromatic Stars, Chromatic Spheres. Those help cast Carnage Tyrant. But, Wurmcoil is much, much easier to cast. And then it also survives Liliana. But the trade-off is that it can be countered. There are only 3 copies of Cryptic Command in Yuta Takahashi's deck that actually counter it. Of course, I don't know if Ikawa knows this. I don't know if they test it together or not. But if he doesn't know that, he has to think, well, there might be Disdainful Stroke. For example, Ceremonious Rejection. Those are all cards that would counter the Wurmcoil but would not counter the Carnage Tyrant. So I think just looking at the 2 lists, knowing exactly what each player has, I would actually lean towards Wurmcoil Engine.
Yeah.
But if I don't know, then maybe Carnage Tyrant is better.
Yeah, certainly psychologically, Carnage Tyrant feels safer or whatever, right? That gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, it's also like, well, you put Carnage Tyrant in your sideboard. If you're not going to bring it in against blue-black control,
yeah, that's a great
why
point.
did you put it in your sideboard at all?
That's a very
right?
good point.
But it's a bit different because the Blue-White decks and the Jeskai decks, they have Path to Exile. And they don't have Liliana of the Veil. So it is much better against them than it is against
Yeah,
Takahashi.
but then they also have stupid Terminus and what's it called? Settle the
Settle the
Wreckage and
Wreckage.
stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe Card Tower's not so great for Modern, you know? You can resolve it. Like, that part's easy. It's just the rest that gets a little sketchy.
Yeah, they will probably. I think the thinking is that they'll side out those cards, hopefully, and then it works, right? If they keep the Path to Exile but side out the Terminus, then it works. But if they keep the Terminus and side out the Path to Exile, it doesn't work nearly as much.
Yeah,
But
no, that's a good point. If the control deck is trying to lean on, Teferi or whatever.
yeah. Oh yeah, Teferi too. But yeah, and it just so happens that this one's Planeswalker is Liliana, which is unfortunate for Karnstein.
Yeah. But you see quite a bit of Liliana in Modern.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a staple in Jund decks and
Yeah.
Abzan decks. We haven't seen a lot of Abzan here. I saw
No.
Reed Duke playing and he was playing Abzan because that's what he plays every time. He's like the Yuta Takahashi of Abzan. But I haven't seen
Reed plays
anyone
Jund
else.
a lot.
Yeah, I guess they are just the same in my
Yeah.
a lot. He plays that group of decks.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Green, black.
Lately,
based.
he's been playing more Abzan, I think.
I see.
And I would think you'd maybe see more Abzan because, Assassin's Trophy has a drawback and Path to Exile has a drawback, but if you put both of them together, you diminish the drawback, right? Because each of those cards that you cast, while the opponent is A, less likely to have a basic land left in their deck, and B, less likely to need the basic land because you've already given them some, which is why I'm surprised there's no Sultai deck because I think Snapcaster Assassin's Trophy is such a good combination.
I'm interested in that. I want to try that move.
Me too.
We should do that.
Yeah, we should have been playing Marshall.
Yeah, we should have been.
Yeah. So it's honestly very surprising to me, but
We've got 6-card hands for both players here. They're now examining those and seeing if they got keepers or if we're going down to 5.
well, Yuta Takahashi is certainly keeping. He has a Field of Ruin, a Bitter Blossom, and I believe a Spellstutter Spray, which is you can't get much better than that, I don't think. And Ikawa looks like he's going to keep too. His hand is not
He's got
as
a-
powerful, I guess, but still
yeah,
pretty good.
He's got a few spheres.
Oh wow, he passed the turn, so he has Spell Pierce.
Yeah, he must have Spell Pierce if he's not going to play that Serum Visions.
And there he is.
And there it is. Spell Pierce. To take out Sylvan Scrying.
Yeah, now do you get the clock going with Bitter Blossom, or do you just try to, draw into more disruption with Serum Visions? And he just has to get the clock going, which I think is very reasonable.
Yeah, I like that play. Crack a Sphere. Ooh. Hits the Ancient Stirrings off of it. Thankfully made that green mana.
Ooh, you
Ooh,
hate to
and
see
there's
that.
Tron. Turn 3 Tron, though, he had to tap some mana to do it, so it's not going to be till next turn when he gets to unlock the full power here, but Yuta Takahashi has to raise his eyebrows at that, like, goodness sakes. This could be over very quickly if he doesn't have answers in hand.
Yeah,
And we know he has the Field of Ruin.
Yeah, he can even go Field of Ruin plus Serum Visions now, which is pretty good for him. He's just deciding which one he's going to target. I believe he has to target the power plant.
What's your
it was-
reasoning?
Well, it was the last one,
Okay.
right? It was the one that his opponent didn't even... I don't even think he shuffled his hand. Right? So he played Ancient Stirrings and just put that into play, I think. Or maybe that's because I'm looking from the top and I can see both hands. It was really clear to me that that was the card that he took. But he's not going to take that if he has another copy in hand, right? Or it's very unlikely that this will be the case.
Right.
And his opponent could easily have other copies of Mine and Tower. In fact, the more copies of a card you have in your hand, the more likely you are to play it first. So even if you're just playing cards randomly, like the more copies you have,
Yes.
So my philosophy is to always target the one that they play second, or third in this case,
Okay.
or the one that they search for.
Okay.
Like if I don't know what they search for, I target the one they played last.
So Ikawa now Tronless. He has Sanctum of Ugin and a forest to go with 2 Tron pieces, but doesn't play anything other than a land for the turn. Passes the turn back to Yuta Takahashi, who has got Bitter Blossom rolling now.
Yeah.
Not a particularly fast clock, but It is an inevitable march towards victory.
Yeah, that it is. He also has Jace the Mind Sculptor, which is perhaps a more inevitable march towards victory.
Yeah.
And that will kind of give Ikawa a one-turn window here, I think.
Oh, and it looks like, yeah, he's going to go for Jace, but he had the option of Jace or Liliana of the Veil here. Oh, and look at this. Plus Jace. Take a look at your top card. Let's keep you off Tron for a while here. And he does, in fact, keep him off of Tron, but not off of a land drop, and that means that Thragtusk has hit the battlefield.
Yeah.
Though I have to say, against a Bitter Blossom, Thragtusk doesn't look super great.
No, not at all. Here, I'm curious. Are we going to see Takahashi attacking with both fairies or with just one? Because if you attack with both and your opponent has some sort of removal spell, they can attack your Jace, kill it.
Pretty
It's
annoying.
pretty annoying. I think it's very unlikely to have a removal spell, but also, would you really risk it? Like, how much is the 1 damage getting you?
Yeah, it feels like inevitability will be on Yuta's side regardless if he gets to keep Jace the Mind Sculptor on the battlefield for a couple of more turns, so I'd probably play very conservatively and just try to make sure I protect Jace at all costs.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's reasonable. Yeah, he does have, like, Cryptic Command, Snapcaster Mage, so I think Ulamog is the one card that could...
Don't even say that.
that could beat him at this point. I don't know if he has a way of shuffling his deck. I believe he does.
Yeah, perhaps digging for a Surgical Extraction. That would be really nice here to break up the Tron. The possibility of Tron, I should say.
Yeah, and if Takahashi wins this, he will have to be feeling pretty great because I think this is one of the matchups he wouldn't normally want to face. I think Ferris is already not great against Tron, and his build of Ferris is even worse against Tron than normal. Even though there are 3 copies of Field of Ruin, which we've seen be probably his most important card.
Goes Chromatic Star into the graveyard. Ikawa does find Sylvan Scrying finally, but it's going to get Cryptic Commanded.
Yeah, we see here that Takahashi didn't attack with any fairy, so he's just trying to triple block the Thragtusk, which I think is a better play than attacking with 1 or 2. We might see Walking Ballista for 1 here, though, and then an attack from Thragtusk. And then the 3 fairies are probably going to trade with the Walking Ballista effectively.
Yep, that's exactly what happens. That's why we pay you the big bucks, Paulo. And Walking Ballista is a potential problem down the line, which has now been completely dealt with. And once again, Takahashi has a good answer for Thragtusk with a Fairy Rogue per turn off of that Bitter Blossom. He gets a new one this turn. Not really worried about applying pressure to Ikawa's life total just yet. He has Jace the Mind Sculptor on the battlefield, and he's been able to activate it multiple turns now, and that's the key. Here's Liliana. He's going to start plussing and just tearing apart Ikawa's hand, and you can see he discards Ugin, as it looks like it's going to be really difficult for him to get there without just cold ripping a power plant at this point.
Yeah, even if he does, like his opponent, yeah, I think Takahashi was deciding on whether he was going to brainstorm or plus the Jace, targeting his opponent.
Yeah.
Decides to brainstorm, trying to find some sort of interaction. I think Vendilion Clique would be good, Surgical Extraction would be good, even Spellstutter Sprite would be good here because he counters all the ways to search for a power plant.
I'm not going to lie, it would kind of make my day to see Yuta Takahashi go for the Vendilion Clique. I think he might even have one.
Oh, he has one already?
I think he might. Like right now it's in the draw step and he just cracked a fetch land, so I'm feeling good about this. And it just feels like all is right. If he does it, I'm giving him full advantage bar. Oh yeah, baby. There we go. This is how the world's supposed to be, right? Yuta Takahashi Vendilion clicking his opponent in draw step. This is all he really wants to do with his life. He's dedicated his professional career to this, and getting to see him do it on camera just feels right.
Yeah, it is one of the best feelings. And the actual best feeling is take nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's
right,
the best.
That is when you know you win the game.
Yeah. Yuta loves this stuff too, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
How about Jace plus, you can keep it. Vendilion Clique you can keep it. These are some of the best things you can have happen to you in a game of Magic. And it is very zero-sum, by the way. Those are the worst feelings to be on the other side of, right? Like, Jace plus keep it is just, ugh.
Oh, wow, he let him keep that Oblivion Stone. So, yeah, that means,
Wow.
or either that or he drew another one, but I think he just let him keep it. And that means, I can deal with this. I think that's kind of unlikely. So it's plus. Yeah, I was too caught up on talking about how great it is to to have this combination, but he does have the Liliana and he has Snapcaster for a Cryptic, so he can delay the Oblivion Stone, but I can't imagine he's very happy to have that resolve.
Huh, interesting.
I think the issue is that maybe, he takes the Oblivion Stone and his opponent draws the Throne piece, then he's in more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I would rather have you have the card that is incredibly, well, not as incredibly hard, but that I have to work a lot to beat, but I can beat, versus giving you the chance that I can't win, right? But
Because his other card was another Ugin, is that what we saw?
I believe so.
And if he ripped the Tron piece and he could just slam Ugin
Yeah, those
and
slamming
completely
Ugin,
wipe the entire board.
slamming Ugin would just get it dead by the tar pit. So it would be like the Oblivion Stone if
Sure.
he just wants to go for the board. Yeah, his plan could be to just, Snapcaster, Cryptic Ed. Then he can even bounce Snapcaster with Jace. I don't know if he has 2 Cryptics in his graveyard or not. But that will also leave him vulnerable to... Yeah, Liliana can get rid of his opponent's last card. Then he can bounce the Oblivion Stone. But that still leaves him vulnerable to a Trump piece from the top, right?
Yes,
Which
it
is
does.
the thing that he was scared of.
The same problem.
Because the Trump piece can just replay the O Stone and use it immediately. So I don't know what he's playing around exactly with this line of play. Oh,
Well-
wow. Now he drew.
What did he draw?
I think he has Surgical.
Okay.
So now he can get the
Yeah,
Trump piece.
now I know he has surgical because he just grabbed his graveyard. So he just goes for that here. He usually waits till the draw step to do it.
Yeah. Well, he also has Jace. So he knows everything that's going on. So he's not actually vulnerable to a Trump piece from the top because he uses Jace. But now he has to get... I think this whole... Oh, the Snapcaster Mage died. So he can't even Jace bounce it back.
No. Yeah, he actually traded it off for the token there.
Yeah, so
along
I guess
with the fairy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm slightly confused. I think I would have preferred getting rid of that Oblivion Stone and risking my opponent drawing a Trump piece immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a very bad feeling when you have this game, locked up, and then you make this play. You're like, well, my opponent's not going to have draw third Trump piece, right? And then they just do, and you lose because you did
Yes.
that.
He's going to Serum Visions into a land here, and he sees another Serum Visions and another Jace the Mind Sculptor. Yuta taking a little pause here to figure out what he wants to do with this scry. He goes top and bottom.
Yeah, he still has, more chances of drawing cryptic commands. So he found another Jace. So it's not like the Oblivion Stone, his opponent still has absolutely nothing. And his opponent will have no cards in hand after Liliana. And he will have another Jace, another Bitter Blossom. He has Surgical, he has access to Field of Ruin. So he's still ahead. And I think, it kind of makes sense if he thought, I just am not going to beat this Ugin, then it makes sense to do what he did. I don't know whether it's true that he wouldn't beat Ugin or whether it's true that it's trivial for him to beat the Oblivion Stone, but that's probably what he thought.
Okay. Well, his backup plan does look pretty strong here. I think he's got a Jace and another Bitter Blossom at the ready. He's got his opponent hellbent now.
Yeah, he's definitely still ahead, but his opponent will have a moment to himself, I guess.
Sure. He is kind of compelling Ikawa to dump all of his mana into this Oblivion Stone. Now.
Yeah, and he hasn't surgical the Tron piece yet.
No.
And now he doesn't know if his opponent's deck, right? But he has Field of Ruin, so he's not worried. Even if his opponent just lambs Tron, he can just Field of Ruin that.
That's right.
And
it doesn't actually change anything. Oh, looks like he might go. Is this the draw step, perhaps? Field of Ruin?
No, I think it's the end of the turn.
It's end step. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's good from Ikawa. Like, some people would be tempted to just use that Oblivion Stone immediately.
Yeah.
Because, you just might as well use my mana. Right, but it's just better to wait. Because this way...
To wait until when?
The upkeep, after the Bitter Blossom has resolved.
Okay.
Because this way, your opponent cannot just lamb of the click end of turn, for example, still.
Yep.
And they take 1 damage from Bitter Blossom.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, I was going to say, because Ikawa does have to use it before Yuta's main phase. He can't let him start using Planeswalkers again. But.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, here we go. Jace the Mind Sculptor to start rebuilding, and Jace is very good at doing just that. And look at that. Liliana of the Veil, too. So Yuta Takahashi right back in business here. Hey, who's messing with my advantage bar? Get back up there.
Yeah, and now we might even see, surgical on Thragtusk. Though I guess that wouldn't even do anything. But...
Oh, looks like that's going to do it there. Ikawa says, you know what? I can't win from this position. You got me, Yuta Takahashi, and that's 2-1 for Yuta Takahashi. So he's 9-1 now with this blue-black fairy stack.
See, just like I told you, Fairies is great.
It's clearly what you should be playing in Modern. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have Time Walk here from Atlanta. Don't go anywhere. there, welcome back to the booth here at GP Atlanta. We're watching Modern Fairies, apparently. 9-1 now. But we're going to be watching some Time Walk right now. So let's head into that. And we've got one of the newcomers to Modern here in our Time Walk match. Jake is playing Izzet Phoenix.
Yep. Yeah, it is. That's a very cool deck. It's playing the Arclight Phoenix as the new card that we see. It is not the Mono Red, Runaway Steam King that we saw yesterday that is also playing Arclight Phoenix. It's a blue-red version with Thing in the Ice, Jace, Verdant's Prodigy. So it's a different deck that has some of the same elements, but not the Ritual, Blood Moon type of thing that we saw yesterday as well. It morphs more as a control deck than an aggro deck, but it has Izzet Charm, which is a counter spell, but also a way of putting the Phoenix in the graveyard.
Yeah, it has actually quite a few ways to get that Phoenix in the yard. Chart of Course, Faithless Looting are really good, and you mentioned Izzet Charm as well. And then, but the Thing in the Ice is the thing that kind of stands out to me as the big difference. It's really trying to take advantage of that card as well.
Yeah, that card is really good against a lot of strategies that can't kill it. Like, a deck like Hardened Scales, for example, it just wants to play a bunch of creatures but doesn't have any removal on its own. Then, well, that's really good against that. And it's very good against, like, Spirits if they don't draw Path to Exile and things like that. And it really taxes their Path to Exile, too. They want to target your Phoenixes. And yeah, there's also 2 copies of Thought Scour. 4 copies of Thought Scour, which are really, really good with Phoenix and Bedlam Reveler. And so this deck really works together. It is, I think, a little bit more vulnerable to Graveyard Hate, or I guess equally vulnerable to Graveyard Hate. It has, the Phoenixes and the Bedlam Revelers and the Faithless Lootings, but that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, but you can still just do the Thing in the Ice, sequence and don't care about your graveyard as much there.
Yeah.
Faithless Looting for Jake is somehow the first spell of the game from his side. He's on 3 lands already. He just hasn't done anything yet. He's going to discard.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, this is sweet.
Does he have another spell to cast? I imagine so, given that his deck is all 1-mana spells. That is a Thought Scour. So that's a Fiery Temper for
he's
people
going
who don't know.
Yeah, Andrew O'Shea had cast the Lightning Bolt on his turn, and Jake says, I got one of those. He's going to go upstairs.
Yeah, and Andrew O'Shea is playing a deck that is very interesting to me, even though it's similar to what we've seen before already.
Ooh, look at this. This is spell number 3, right, for the Arclight Phoenix?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, what if he hits another one?
Well, I don't think that would work because...
Does it not?
I think it has to be in the graveyard to trigger when you cast a 3rd spell.
I don't think so. I think it's when you go to combat, right?
Is it a delay trigger that happens in combat?
Yeah, I think so.
Or is it a trigger during combat?
At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast 3 or more instant and sorceries spells this turn, return Arclight Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can hit it.
All right. That's nice.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah. No,
now, he didn't hit an additional one.
Unlucky.
Yeah.
But he's just going to get it back again, right? His opponent is not going to be able to Lightning Bolt that Phoenix every turn of the game.
Right.
And sometimes when you see the Mono-Red deck or even the Blue-Red deck from Standard, like, yeah, if you just kill that Phoenix twice, they're not going to bring it back. They can bring it back forever. It's not Hollow One where the Phoenix just keeps coming back forever. But in this deck, the way it's constructed, it's going to come back every turn. His deck is all 1-mana spells.
Yeah, sometimes they're even free, like Manamorphose you see here.
Yeah.
Effectively a 0-mana spell as long as you can make the down payment of 2. He's got Chart of Course and another Chart of Course as well. So, boom. Back again.
Ooh,
and he hit a Phoenix number 2 as well. How about we go to combat? Boom. And you said he can't keep Lightning Bolting forever. He's going to try, but that's Lightning Bolt number 3 out of the deck here for O'Shea. He's going to need to see some Path to Exiles here if he's going to get rid of those permanently.
Yeah, and O'Shea's deck is very interesting to me because normally, there's Jeskai and there's Blue-White, and this is Jeskai. And the trade-off in my mind is that, well, the red removal is better than the white removal. Right? You don't want to play Oust. You don't want to play Condemn. You want to play Lightning Bolt and Lightning Healers. Those are better. But the card that Blue-White gets to play that Jeskai doesn't get to play is Terminus. And Terminus is very strong against, cards like Arclight Phoenix, for example, or against Hollow One or against Dredge. Terminus is really, really good. Now, you might ask, why can't you just play Jeskai with Terminus? Right, because Terminus is a white card. You can put it in Jeskai. And that is exactly what Andy O'Shea did. So, O'Shea, sorry, did. His deck has 3 copies of Terminus, as opposed to the Supreme Verdict that you normally see in Jeskai. But why is it different? Like, why doesn't everyone do that? I think there are a couple of reasons. The first one is that Terminus is really good with Jace, and Teferi is better than Jace.
It's lightning bolt number 4. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Paula. Go ahead.
And Teferi is better than Jace in the Jeskai deck. And it is a cost to play Jace over Teferi, a cost that you have to pay to play Terminus. The other cost is that when you have so much cheap removal, the board doesn't get so big. So it's not as appealing to Lightning Bolt's your first play, Lightning Helix your second play, Snapcaster Bolt your third play. Oh, here's the 4th creature, Terminus that. Like, it's not as much of a game plan.
Doesn't make sense, yeah.
Yeah, whereas in Blue-White, it's like, okay, that's fine, Terminus everything. So the plans are kind of conflicting, which is why we see, 1 Supreme Verdict, sometimes one Settle, but not a lot of sweepers. And here he's playing, he's not playing the full 4, he's playing 3 Terminus and has nothing else. So it's very interesting. I wonder if this is just the direction we were supposed to go all along. Because if we like the red removal and we like Terminus, there's really no reason we can't just play both in the same deck.
Interesting sequencing here. Jake, he is now well on his way to his 3rd time in a row of getting back Arc-like Phoenixes. And it looks like he just had double bolt for the win there at the end anyway. But as you mentioned, those Phoenixes just came back every single turn. Just turn, every turn. Once he got it rolling, he was able to cast 3 spells, no problem, every turn. Almost all of his spells draw him a card or at least get him through his library on some level. So he's able to keep that fuel going. And he wins game 1 pretty easily there, just off of the 2 Phoenixes coming back. Andrew O'Shea used a lightning bolt upstairs and then 3 lightning bolts on Phoenixes that ended up coming back anyway. And that is just not a long-term game plan that's going to work out, and it didn't here.
Yeah, it really isn't. Now he has a much better long-term plan, which is Surgical Extraction, but his opponent has a card that I love. It is Firemind's Research. And that is his plan against control. So that completely ignores any graveyard hate that you were bound to see. Like, your opponent is going to have Surgical. They are going to have Resting Beast. In fact, his opponent has 2 of those right now. But this card just goes over all of that. It's a really strong card if you can make it work.
Wow, with the number of spells that this deck, it's casting 3 a turn, often. And look at this, here's Thing in the Ice as well for Jake, right on turn 2, and it resolves as well. So Andrew O'Shea already with his hands full. He has a lot of ways to kill creatures, but 4 toughness is a problem.
Yeah, and all the value you're getting from the red spells in other matchups, like, Affinity, Spirits, Humans, that you can just lightning bolt things, you're not getting it here.
No.
Because you don't want to lightning bolt the Phoenixes, as we saw last game. That was not a winning proposition.
Right.
And you can't lightning bolt the Thing in the Ice. You need 2 of those. So he would actually rather have cards like Oust and Condemn in this matchup.
Yeah, he would.
Other than the red removal. He discarded a Thoughtscar. Yeah, I like this plan here from Jake. He could have just slammed the Firemind's Research on turn 2. But then his opponent has a card like a Negate or, a Spell Pierce of some sort, a Mana Leak, then he just loses that forever. And from his perspective, it's better to just play the 0/4. It cannot be negated if it's Mana Leak. You don't care as much. And then it forces your opponent to react with something, right? And then that might give you a window to play the Firemind's Research.
Yeah, we see that right here. Jake is just sort of moving his way forward, although right now it looks like he's just going to go for the Firemind's Research.
Yeah, he can also have Dispel.
Sure, to try to protect it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has that in hand or not, but he has it in his sideboard.
Wow, that resolved. Andrew O'Shea with just stone nothing here. 4 mana, has nothing. Or at least chooses to cast nothing. 5 mana go. Thought Scour. Get a counter on this, lose a counter from that. Mills a couple of lightning bolts. And even though he's behind a little bit on lands here, he's doing just fine for himself. And there we go. Here's Chart a Course to put a counter on Firemind's Research and remove the final counter from Thing in the Ice. O'Shea has to have some answer for the Awoken Horror here, but otherwise we're definitely just done.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what Andrew O'Shea's game plan is here. It sounds like his hand is Surgical Extraction, and I don't really see anything else.
Yeah, and that's a fine plan against the Arclight Phoenix, but he's got his hands full. He's got the Firemind's Research already with 3 counters on it, and now the big 7-powered Awoken Horror is ready to start rumbling, and Andrew O'Shea really needs to start reacting. Okay, well, here's the Surgical Extraction targeting the Arclight Phoenix. So he's going to get a couple of those out of the yard and then whatever's left in the graveyard as well.
Is that in response to the Manamorphose?
Don't know. It looks like it's still on the stack.
Yeah, I don't really see a reason for it to be in response. You'd rather your opponent draw that Arclight Phoenix off the Manamorphose, but I guess he's trying to play around.
Maybe a
land dispel
negate or something. Well, I mean, he doesn't have the mana pool's empty right now, right?
Yeah, but he has to move to combat.
Yeah.
And then once he moves to combat, you can Surgical the Phoenixes.
Totally. Yeah.
So you don't have to wait for that, but you could be scared of land dispel. That is.
Sure.
But I think he just played a land.
Yeah.
He had 3
He did.
the previous turn. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so a little early on that. Here's Lightning Helix upstairs. Now Manamorphose resolves. Okay. Couple of mana floating. Lightning Bolt, you get a counter on my Firemind's Research. And, the life total goes very, very quickly when your opponent goes Lightning Bolt, 5 counters on the Research now. Plus, if this attack actually happens, we could just be done.
Yeah, now this Firemind's Research is just lethal,
It's
right?
just lethal now. That's going to do it. Wow. Andrew O'Shea with a pretty anemic draw, it must be said. He just didn't do a whole lot that game. Meanwhile,
he did nothing.
Yeah, how many spells did Jake cast? I mean, 10? A lot of them are just, getting through your deck or cantripping or whatever, but still, he's able to take advantage of that. I mean, that's the whole point of the deck, right? That these blue and red spells, you can just cast so many of them, and if you have payoffs for that, like Arclight Phoenix, Awoken Horror, and Firemind's Research, well, you're getting paid, for grinding through your library, and that's exactly what happened. All right, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll have BDM and Eduardo to bring you live Magic from the next round here in Atlanta. We'll see you in a bit.